Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 22nd regular business board meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Before we begin with our student presentation, you may notice that there are little flowers in front of our board members, and that's because, and they also have certificates, January is board member recognition month. Every January, we take time to celebrate and recognize the challenging and vital work school directors do on behalf of our students, families, and community. It is a time to spotlight the contributions of these valuable citizen volunteers. This year's theme for School Director Recognition Month is Success Starts Here. Let's not forget our elected school directors who play a significant role in creating the environment where those successes can happen. The job they do is necessary to ensure our schools remain a pathway to a promising future. In Lower Merion, our school directors devote countless hours each month to school business. They take the time to understand the issues, opportunities, and challenges that we face as districts, and they're truly experts in their role. On behalf of the entire Lower Merion School District community, I'd like to recognize each of our school directors tonight. You provide the necessary leadership to ensure that our students receive an exceptional education, one that serves as a model for Pennsylvania and the country. We're grateful for all that you do for putting students first. Congratulations. We also want to take the opportunity to each month at our business meeting to recognize various programs that are going on in our schools. And so tonight I'd like to welcome the Kinwood Elementary School and our Kinwood Elementary teacher, Megan Henry, who will talk about responsive classroom along with her children. Where is she? There she is. Thank you.
So I want to thank you for having us here tonight to share about the many effective and positive outcomes that both the students and teachers have experienced since being trained in responsive classroom. But we are really most proud of our student speakers here tonight, excited for them to share their perspectives and feelings on responsive classroom. I'm going to just get this started.
So there are 4 key domains of responsive classroom. The first being engaging academics. Teachers create learning tasks that are active, interactive, appropriately challenging, purposeful, and connected to student interests. The second is positive community. Teachers nurture a sense of belonging, significance, and emotional safety so that students feel comfortable taking risks and working with a variety of peers. The third is effective management. Adults create a calm, orderly environment that promotes autonomy and allows students to focus on learning. And the last, developmental awareness. Teachers use knowledge of child development along with observations of students to create a developmentally appropriate learning environment.
All right, the responsive classroom approach consists of a set of practices and strategies that build academic and social-emotional competencies. This approach works well with many other programs and can be introduced gradually into a teacher's practice. An important feature of the responsive classroom approach is that it's not an add-on, but rather integrates the teaching of social and academic skills throughout the school day.
In order to be successful in and out of the school, students need to learn a set of social and emotional competencies, cooperation, assertiveness, responsibility, empathy, and self-control, and a set of academic competencies, academic mindset, perseverance, learning strategies, and academic behaviors.
Hi, I'm Avery Pelletier, and my class thinks that morning meeting is very beneficial. Lmsb said, in the morning when I wake up, I know at least one thing will be the same each day. Morning meeting. Willa said, morning meeting is a time where everyone gathers and shares a special moment or highlight. It can be thoughtful or funny. It can also be a time where we can connect by playing a game. We relax and get time to know our class and our teacher. Morning meeting isn't just a place where we sit for 15 minutes. It's meaningful. Finn says, morning meeting 1 gets us ready for the day, 2 helps us focus, 3 allows us to get to know one another, 4 starts the day off strong, 5 tells us what the day will look like, 6 gives us time to greet each other by name, and 7 helps us get our minds together and ready for the day. Asher says, one of the benefits of morning meeting is that it gives us time to relax before the learning starts. Nina says, it's my favorite part of the day. It is a good start to the day. And I think morning meeting is the most calming part of the day, and everyone contributes something to the group.
Hi, I'm Anna Byler, and here are some things our classmates said about morning meeting. Talia says morning meeting is the first 15 minutes of our school day that I would rate 5 stars. Jack says, I like morning meeting for a lot of reasons. Morning meeting is about catching up with each other and greeting friends. Sometimes we share and sometimes we play a simple game. I think this is a great way to start our day. Eleni says, morning meeting calms my classmates down because our class usually comes through the door chatty and busy. Chris says it's one of the best parts of the school day. We get to share a highlight of our weekend on Monday, and that's one of my favorite parts. Allie says, I like morning meeting because we get a chance for the whole class to be in the same place and do something together. I wish we had a longer morning meeting because it's the only time during the day when we're not doing something academic like multiplying fractions or writing TDAs. And I say morning meeting sets your mood for the rest of the day. We do fun little activities that gets us warmed up and ready for the day.
Responsive Classroom directly underscores our all-forward strategic plan. So Responsive Classroom allows the students to successfully incorporate creativity and critical thinking coupled with a love of learning where students are encouraged to demonstrate appropriate individual growth, tying seamlessly into our pathway, redefining success. When students are given choices in their learning, particularly through academic choice, a responsive classroom practice, the students can navigate their own learning and their growth in an environment where self-reflection is valued. And finally, through the pathway student-driven schools, there is that mirror of that foundational school in responsive classroom where we're nurturing and celebrating the individual strengths of our diverse learners, helping them to develop competencies that ensure their success beyond the Lower Merion School District experience.
Hi, my name is Claire. Last year I was in Miss Henry's first grade classroom. I grew so much from her use of responsive classroom. When I have choices in my learning, I choose the one best for me. When you don't get choices, you might not like learning or feel like giving your best. With a responsive classroom, my work is challenging enough to help me learn something new. We also learned in different ways. We all get the same topic, but we could show our work in different ways. My work makes me feel proud of myself. My teacher used words to help me believe in myself. She would tell me to keep trying and to trust my talents. We had a classroom community where we all felt comfortable to take risks, where mistakes help us to learn. I hope all children get to learn in a responsive classroom because they will enjoy their learning. They can show their teachers how much they enjoy this style of learning. Thank you for listening to me.
And the students have created a quick little snippet for you to bring it on home about responsive classroom for you.
Because we get to share about interesting stuff we've done, and our classmates like to know that, and it helps us work better as a team.
4 times 5 equals 20. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 24.
I really like morning meeting because we don't just head straight to our desks and do math and work. We start out the day with like greeting each other, telling each other about our weekends. We also use a lot of teamwork in morning meeting because sometimes the teachers will give us problems and games and we all have to use the entire class to solve it, and it's really fun.
4, 8, 12, 16, 20,
28.
32.
Responsive classrooms lets me be who I am.
I like having a voice in completing my work because I can use the strategies that work for me.
Work time, I like to think and draw and cut out stuff. It's my most favorite part of the day.
Do design challenges. I can only use certain amounts of material, so it's challenging but also fun.
I am thankful for differences between people because I know everyone says this, but the world would be so boring. Okay, are you ready? I'm going to demonstrate a conversation with no differences between people. What's your favorite color? Blue. Me too. What's your favorite food? Candy. Me too. You get the idea? It would be awful, terrible, and dreadful. That's why I am thankful for differences between people.
Thank you very much for the presentation from Ms. Henry, who we're always happy to see, and all the other teachers, and of course our fabulous students, which is the best part of these meetings, is to hear from the students. So thank you very much. And
Yes, so note to self, next year I'll have some groups from the AP Calculus class come and talk before I do my budget presentation, but I'm going to take about 20 minutes to do a budget presentation, and you're all certainly welcome to stay. But this is a good time to run.
You just have to click on the, I wrote it up already. You're good.
those of you who are standing in the back and would like to come, there are some seats up here.
So good evening, everyone, members of the board and public. This is the time of the year that we traditionally begin our budget season, and I'm going to have the opportunity to share with you an overview of our budgeting process. Now, you know, one of the things that I was discussing with Mr. Orlando today and some other members of the staff, you know, what we try and do in this process is take information we have today, make recommendations for what happens next year, but also understand that we're looking 5 years out, 6 years out, 7 years out. So we're always balancing a sense of what are we going to do next year, but what implications will that have for us in the future? There are a number of highlights or takeaways that I want to begin with. First, this presentation is really an initial budget. It's not a preliminary budget, and we typically call this a preliminary budget. A preliminary budget has a special connotation under the Act 1 law. You call it a preliminary budget if you expect to apply for exceptions. Those are exceptions above the Act 1 limit. We're not going to do that this year, and I'll go into some detail to explain why, and go into detail explain why this year is different from prior years. The circumstances are just different for us. Also, you'll note that the use of fund balance this year to close the budget deficit is about $3.7 million. And last year it was 6.3. So that's a good sign. We really are budgeting closer to the actual that we need. We're also anticipating increased revenues. I'll talk about that in some detail, but we continue to have the challenges of enrollment growth, and we continue to have the challenges of short-term and long-term planning. So the impact of enrollment growth, and some of this I've said before. The greatest cost to any school district is directly related to the number of children they have, and our enrollment growth costs us about 1% annually. And that's an interpolation because it's a combination not only of increases in expenditures for material, for books, for the number of students who need books, desks, chairs, the number of teachers we hire, but also the expansion of our facilities, and we're estimating it's worth about that much. And no other school district in the Commonwealth is being impacted by the growth of students the way Lower Merion is. Now the next slide is last year's. These are last year, meaning this current year's budgeted additional staff. The additional staff came out to about $1.3 million for program enhancements or for just the growth. So that was last year, meaning this current school year. We haven't finalized our staffing plan going forward, but I wanted to give you a snapshot as to what we did last year. This is a similar graph that we showed. It's been updated. And I think what's important is this represents I don't expect everybody to read everything under the graph. This represents every single school district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And you can see the vast majority of school districts are losing students, and the smallest number of school districts are gaining students. And when you go in even further and you say, well, let's take the top 15 growth districts, you can see by number of students growing, Lower Merion leads the pack. And just by way of a comparison, I showed TE. Because of the budget cycle this year, we're going to recommend that the board adopt a resolution this evening. That resolution certifies a millage rate that will not exceed 2.4. 2.4 is the Act 1 index. That's the most you can get. The schedule, we will schedule many budget finance committee meetings. They will all be videoed so that you can watch them, but we really encourage people to come out to those. And eventually we'll adopt a proposed final budget, Mr. Orlando, in April, I believe that is, and then a final budget in June. What drives the budget? Well, as I mentioned, certainly the number of students, but what follows that in this district is a desire to make sure that we maintain low class sizes, our enrollment growth, personnel costs, special education mandates, and the fact that we get little or no increase in state or federal funding. So, what are some of our problems? I mentioned that this is a balancing act. Well, we've got to balance current and future tax revenues. We still don't have a state budget. We should get that in February sometime. We've got pending litigation, as I think everybody is aware of, and we are currently negotiating contracts. This is a slide that I think you've seen before. This really demonstrates that we get most of our revenue from local tax dollars. Now, this is the work that Mr. Orlando and his team have put together, and I think the biggest takeaway from there is, again, you can see what we're anticipating in terms of revenue, and we count revenue as part of our revenue, what we use to help balance the budget. Last year, it was $6 million of surplus. This year, it's $3.7 million of surplus. I would argue the lower reliance on fund balance to balance the budget is incredibly important. This goes on to indicate, well, let me go back, actually, and you can see that there are certain categories where we're estimating growth in revenues from the local share, and here you can see from state sources where we're expecting some increases, not so much in state sources, and balancing out to what we have. You want to add anything, Vic? No? No? Okay. I gave you a shot. This is just taking some major budget categories and indicating where the expenditures are, and you can see from this that most of the expenditures are really supporting direct instruction in the schools. But there is just under 10% is going for debt service. That's for construction costs, basically our mortgage payments throughout the year. And this indicates the broad categories of expenditures for next year, and you can see that personnel costs are a major driver in terms of our expenditures. So the real estate tax change is 2.4%. Let me emphasize that this is an initial budget. Now, last year, when we showed this document, we included the total exceptions and the Act 1 index, and we were actually below the Act 1 index when we finished at the end of the year. So we're very early. We're using actuarial numbers that we're getting for things like insurance. We're looking at a variety of different things. I can't promise the number will get smaller. All this indicates is it won't get larger. Now, why didn't we take exceptions this year? Well, we don't qualify. If you take a look at 2014, 2015, you can see the Act 1 index was, and you can see what our net increase in expenditures were. Now, that net increase of expenditures takes into account the 2012-13 and the 2013-14 school year. It's a 2-year look back. And so you can see that our expenditures exceeded the limit, and we were eligible for an exception, the exception over the Act 1 limit. And you can see that we could apply for the exceptions in each of the last 4 years because our expenditures were above the Act 1 index threshold. But you can also see that even though we were above it last year, the board voted not to take those exceptions. But this year, with the threshold being $1 million plus, and our net increase in expenditures only $722,000, you can see that we were $300-something thousand below, so we're not eligible for the threshold. So what I want to emphasize is we are not spending our money on what's an appropriate level of education, and I would argue a superior level of education for our special education students. But we have done some things like expanding special education programs in our school system, keeping kids closer to home, which also has a collateral benefit of costing less money because we're not paying out of district places. So I think the special ed department deserves a lot of credit because we've expanded programs, expanded opportunities for students. Ms. LaPera, I've gone. Oh. Okay. So we've done a number of those things to bring the cost down. We get retirement benefits.
So maybe I should just stand behind you. I don't know what's happening.
So I'll let you push the button.
Okay, here, tell me what.
So PSERS, the percentage is set by the pension PSERS board. And if we had taken the exceptions that we were allowed, it would have been about $40,000. So we're just not eligible for exceptions this year. I think you'll find a lot of school districts are in a similar situation when it comes to PSERS. I'm going to talk more about PSERS before the end of the presentation, just so that the PSERS situation has a better understanding. We provided this chart for you last year, and we updated it this year. And what this chart is showing is if we can approximate our spending against the increase in our PSERS obligation, you'll see that at some point we won't, no matter how much we tax, we won't be able to meet our expenditure obligations. That's why we have a PSERS reserve. Now, what would be, here's where we get into some mixing of situations. Because we're a district that's growing, if we were a district that wasn't growing, our debt service, our mortgage payments, as it were, would start to decline. And you could eventually say, you know what, by the time we have to meet exceptional PSERS obligations, maybe our debt service is declining. But as we're looking at expanding our facilities, we can't count on that. So folks will say, well, why don't you use the PSERS reserve? We don't use the PSERS reserve yet because you can see that if we did, at some point we wouldn't be able to meet our obligations, and then we'd have to probably cut programs. So here's our budget calendar. My first budget presentation will be February 13th. That's when I'll be doing it for the ISC. But you can see that there's a number of budget presentations that we're going to be doing at finance committees. Whether they're during the day or whether they're in the evening, they'll all be videoed. And we encourage the public to come out to that. The financial impact of the millage uncertainty. Right now what we're doing is we're segregating funds from our fund balance while we're going through the litigation process. And you may have read last week that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has agreed to hear our petition from the Commonwealth Court. So we're hopeful that the court will rule in the district's favor in the months going forward. But just to make sure, we've been segregating funds. Now, 2 years have gone by. If we continue to segregate funds, of course, the danger is eventually it's going to hurt our credit rating, and we are concerned about that. And lastly, I put this slide here last year, and I put it here again to remind folks that we are a public school system. We proudly educate all kids. We don't have an entrance requirement. You just got to live here and be old enough to come. And that's very different. I'm not demeaning our colleagues in independent schools, but we're proud of the fact that we take on everybody, and I'm proud to be associated with a school district that does it so well. So that's our initial budget presentation. You can close it down.
Closing it down.
Thank you very much, Mr. Copeland. I'd like to open it up to board members if there are any questions at this time. Go ahead, Lori.
Given all the changes at the federal level, I guess there's been less change at the state level, and we have a budget. Is there anything that's not anticipated in here that we should be thinking about or that's different from last year? And if the answer is no, that's fine, but I just wanted to at least raise the question.
Nothing yet. We're waiting anxiously to see what direction the Secretary of Education is going to go in. It's my opinion, mine alone, perhaps, that I am concerned that there's not the champion of public education that there used to be. So I don't know how that's going to translate. Vic, are you aware of any? No.
Not at this time.
Thank you.
What about the potential of the legislature getting rid of property taxes?
Well, as I've been told, the legislature comes up with that idea every once in a while. My understanding of that bill was that the legislature was going to eliminate property taxes, go to an enhanced income tax and sales tax, and they were going to hold districts harmless for their current revenue of taxes, and that they would get back from the state coffers those taxes that they currently have. That means there would have been a huge amount of money coming into southeastern Pennsylvania and leaving northern and western Pennsylvania. I just never saw how those numbers were going to add up.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. I guess I want to just talk real quick about the special education exceptions. Because I think in your slide 17, you showed the exception amount over the past 4 or 5 years. But my recollection is the school district didn't always take the full amount we were allowed in some cases, and in other cases, we may have asked for X dollars, but the state may have only allowed us, a less amount than X. Is my recollection correct?
Partially. I think that.
Please correct me.
My understanding, I'm looking at Mr. Orlando, is the district never applied for more than they thought that they were due. Is that correct?
That's correct.
However, with the exception of 1, maybe 2 years out of the last 6 or 7, the board never took the full amount that they were entitled to. That you're correct.
Thank you.
Anybody on this side at this time?
Thank you for the presentation. On slide 4, you mentioned that enrollment growth costs about 1% annually. Can you tell us what that 1% represents?
Yeah, we talked about that. It represents the number of new staff that we hired. Now, this year, meaning last year for this year's budget, that staffing number represented about $1.3 million. It doesn't include pension costs. It doesn't include health costs. It doesn't include the debt service that goes on every year. So we could have teased out those individual things. I mean, we've gone up, 1,400 students in the last 8 years. But when the district was 6,500, 7,000 students, now there's 2,000 students. You've built on to Gladwin, you built on to Penn Valley, you've built on to a number of schools. We didn't take the time to tease out the debt service cost of each one of those. That's why I said it's an interpolation, and we think that that's an approximate number.
Okay, thank you. And the 1% is 1% out of the 2.4% that we're allowed to raise?
No, out of our total budget.
Is it out of a total budget?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Copeland. Just one quick question. You had mentioned, I think, in looking at your the anticipated revenue, just from 2017-18 to 18-19, it goes up about $5 million. Is that based on a 2.4% increase, or what is that based upon? In other words, how did that figure get derived?
I lost my presentation, so I'm going to let Mr. Orlando answer that.
Well, I think you're talking about the local revenues on the real estate taxes.
Yes.
So included in that, so if you go to the 17-18 budget, that includes the final budget, which includes the property tax relief money. So if you look on the next slide, you'll see 3.4 million, 3.5 million. In the initial budget, since that is not known yet, that is blank. So basically that local revenue will be reduced by 3.5 million when the money becomes due. So it'll be reduced slightly and increase the state sources.
I didn't follow you.
All right, so if you have the 210 million, you said it goes to 215, so it's a $5 million increase. That $5 million increase includes monies for the homestead exclusion. So that would be reduced by 3.5 million, that 5 million down to 1.5, and 3.5 will go into state sources.
So where you see, we're taking in money from, we're counting as revenue taxes, right?
Right.
You're going to get a rebate on those taxes from the homestead exclusion.
Okay.
So we don't get that now. The state, however, makes up the difference between what you get back and what we don't get. And the reason you don't get it is because it makes absolutely no sense to me or anybody else that I know of. So they're saying to the district, okay, figure out what your revenue is, what your taxes are, right? And that was a $5 million increase, right? Then a certain amount of that is going to be rebated to you through the homestead. So that comes off of our local tax revenue, and it's made up by the state. It's the gambling fund? Correct. The gambling money. They make up for it in the gambling money and return it to us, but now it becomes state revenue as opposed to local revenue.
That all money's green, right? They're just moving around.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm from New Jersey.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Before we move to audience recognition, I'd like to read a joint statement between the school district and the Lower Merion Education Association. So the achievement of a new collective bargaining agreement between the Lower Merion Education Association and the Lower Merion School District is a high priority goal for both parties. We have been negotiating with the assistance of a state-provided mediator for several months, and while the parties have made progress in clarifying issues and exploring potential solutions, we have not yet reached an overall agreement. As a result, we have agreed to engage an experienced private mediator who has worked with other school districts facing similar issues to assist in our bargaining. We believe that this joint process should enable us to reach a new collective bargaining agreement that fairly recognizes the contributions of our teachers and staff, as well as the challenges faced by our district. So that's a joint statement. And now we will move to audience recognition on agenda items only. So at the end of the meeting, we'll have audience recognition on any issue, but at this time we ask that if you have a question or comment related to agenda items only, to please come sign in with Ms. LaPera. And then when you make your statement or question, please give us your name and the general area in which you reside. So is there anyone who would like to make a statement or ask a question on an agenda item only at this time? Or the presentations that we just made, they're on the agenda. If everyone could please come in and sign in, and then we'll get a sense of, we can do that and get started. So, Ms. Prozis, you can get started while we're waiting for everybody else.
Good evening. I know many of you, I've heard many of you are here with concerns regarding overcrowded schools and the teacher contract. I'm here to discuss another important issue affecting our students. On tonight's agenda is approval of the contract to purchase the Stanford Survey of Adolescent School Experiences. I have read about Stanford's Challenge Success program and its efforts to create better schools and healthier kids. Challenge Success devotes several pages to a discussion of the importance of adequate sleep. Quote, A healthy sleep cycle promotes the academic and emotional success of adolescents. This, in accordance with recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, as well as other well-regarded medical organizations. Due to the natural developmental shift in a teenager's circadian rhythm, most Lower Merion teens cannot attain a healthy sleep cycle or the recommended 8 to 10 hours of sleep with our current 7:30 a.m. high school start time. We value the work of Dr. Paul and her committee and the board's commitment to the holistic health needs of all LMSD students. At the school board forum in October, all 4 of the candidates now serving on the board stated that later high school start times were no longer a matter of if, but of how and when, and that implementation should be within 1 to 3 years. We know that this change may be logistically complex, but we know that student health and learning must be the priority. I am here tonight on behalf of multiple parents to follow up on our written request that this board vote to adopt a resolution expressing its commitment to healthy school start times. Districts successful in adopting a change often start by setting a goal, such as, our goal is to start our middle and high schools at 8:30 a.m. or later in order to optimize student health and learning. Once a community accepts this goal, it can move from should we do this to how will we do this. Moving forward with later school start times is a rare opportunity for a school district to affect tremendous positive change for our students. We urge you to adopt such a resolution. And I thank you for your work on behalf of all of our students.
Thank you. Can you just say your, I know your name, but can you say your name and where you live?
Yeah, Lisa Prosnitz, Penn Valley.
Thank you.
Hello. Adrian Seltzer, Lower Merion, and also speaking for Stand Up for Lower Merion. After a recent meeting I had, I was surprised to learn with the priority for cultural proficiency and competence that the district professes, that's not really the right word, but the district likes to do, that the administration does not require continuing education credits in cultural competence or proficiency. I strongly recommend that these classes be required in the new contract for teachers to advance in the district. Also, I have a question. Was there a change in the website because I'm no longer getting meeting notifications? Is that something that anybody else has heard of? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who is next?
Hi, I'm Jerry Sinker. I'm the administrator of the popular Facebook group, Lower Merion Politics as Usual. And I saw on the agenda tonight that you're going to be discussing a feasibility study for St. Charles Seminary. And I just wanted to confirm that you've had discussions with the seminary in terms of their interest in selling to the school district.
We'll answer questions at the end. So is that the end, or do you have more that you'd like to ask us?
No, that's my question, is whether or not you've had any conversation with the seminary, and whether there's any interest on their part.
Thank you very much. Who is it?
Lauren.
Is there anyone?
Lauren Fetting.
She's coming, I think.
Hi, thanks. Hi, my name is Lauren Fenning. I'm with Room to Learn, No Mega Schools in Lower Merion. I just wanted to come here tonight. I know we're getting close to a decision about building an 11th school. I really hope that the school board is considering the impact on children in our schools from them being overcrowded. And I just wanted to give an example. I don't have anything written down. Recently on Penwyn Elementary Parents on Facebook, there's a thread that basically shows that the fifth graders this year have had a lost year. And the main reason is overcrowding. They have not raised enough money for kids to come to events. And the number one reason that people are listing is because there's not enough room and there's no parking. And I think it's also, there's no sense of community. Nobody knows each other. You don't get to go inside the school and talk to any of the teachers. There's been behavior problems at the school. There's been behavior problems in the cafeteria. Kids have to eat like they have to shove their food down. And adding on an extension will not improve any of those things. It doesn't increase course space, and it will continue to be like that. So right now, what should have been a very special year for fifth graders is not. And it's just the beginning of what happens when schools get overcrowded. So I do want to thank you for looking at the Islamic Center and now the seminary. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So, Ben, is this on an agenda item?
I was going to speak to the St. Charles thing related to that, and also the Islamic Center.
The Islamic Center, it's not on the agenda. Okay. Go ahead. I've asked that people generally stick to agenda items at the beginning, but since the St. Charles is on the agenda, please come up and have your time.
Ben Meyer, Wynwood. Again, just to echo that, thank you for investigating the St. Charles. I don't know what that'll bring, but it's great that you're asking questions. A few of us, I think a third middle school has a lot of potential to help the kids. One positive aspect that's I don't think has been mentioned too often is that actually a third middle school creates neighborhood stabilization for kindergarten through fourth. So effectively, those folks would be able to kind of stay in their neighborhood. It does require redistricting fifth through eighth in some areas of the district, but actually you do get, it's sort of a hybrid solution in a way because you do get kindergarten through fourth stabilized. Another aspect that hasn't been brought up too much is to consider course space, is some of the extracurricular activities like team sports, like jazz band, theater, things like that. The more crowded a school gets, if it's not really planned to be crowded in the first place, there may be a limited number of spots on the team. My own daughter, the high school volleyball is incredibly popular, so, tough decisions have to be made there. But then you've got things like jazz band where there's 3 pianists and 1 piano. So the more crowded a school gets, the less playing time, if you will, the people have, the students, the children have. So I don't think that's been brought up as a course-based item. And finally, a few of us engineers and an architect went up to the Islamic Center, 1860 Montgomery, this weekend. We just checked it out briefly, very sketchily, and I sent you all the plan, and I'm not going to show it here right now, but if anybody's interested, I'll be happy to show them. But suffice it to say, I think with some creativity, I think we can fit a full track there. I think we can fit 2 baseball fields. And the advantage of a full track is you can put a full soccer field inside the track. So it's actually pretty important to try to get to that. And I think even with our sketches, it's probably possible to, again, it's sketches, it's concepts, it's not like meant to be super precise at this point. But anyway, we'll see. We're kind of curious what the school has, but I know you're going on a retreat, and we wanted you to have that we think it's probably doable for the field space, and even to save this historical building there potentially. And what we had was sort of, it would be one side of a courtyard, which is a great system that we have here at Lower Merion, a great thing at Harriton, and also Welsh Valley, where you have the nice courtyard. It's a very safe area for the kids when it's warm outside to go and study. So thank you, and great time.
Thank you very much.
No, let me finish. Just a couple of things that I can speak to in terms of, I know Dr. Gilbert's going to speak to the start time. I'm not aware of any changes and notifications in webpage notifications or matters of that. In terms of the feasibility study, we have been in contact, or our attorneys have been in contact with St. Charles, and we're working on an opportunity for our professionals to visit the site. In terms of the core space, I think we did. I respectfully would ask that you take a look at some of the presentations. We did talk quite a bit about core space in the schools, and in fact, that continues to be one of the concerns. One of the concerns we have is that kids are losing their core space, and that's happening throughout the district. Just wanted to mention, because I make it a real habit to stay away from Facebook. I just do. It just seems to be the smartest thing to do. But no matter how far away I stay, people bring me examples of what they find on Facebook. And people are saying, why is the board going into retreat, and what's going on? The board regularly does that. I recommend boards do it in August and again in January. It's an opportunity to have an information session. It's reported on at each time we do that. The solicitor reports on the date and reports on the topics that were discussed. Somebody said, well, they say you're violating sunshine, and I said, well, whoever said that frankly doesn't know what they're talking about. So the board is going to have an information center section. Part of that will be an update on real estate, which is perfectly allowable. And what that also allows us to do is the board gets to vet a lot of their questions prior to the February 5th meeting, so there's less board interaction and there's more time for the public. So it's just the opposite, I think, of the characterization that I'm told is on Facebook, which I stay away from. Now, you wanted to talk, I think, Dr. Gill wanted to talk about that.
Well, I just wanted, because Ms. Prosnitz brought up an email that she and some others sent, I just wanted to read our response so that everyone in the public has sort of the same information. Sort of after thanking everyone for the letter, I said the board is deeply interested in this issue and is absolutely committed to the holistic health needs of all Lmsd students. You may also know that we have established a committee of 12 district and school administrators to gather and discuss logistical factors, which has met 5 times over the past 12 months. We are continually reviewing newly published research on sleep science and school start times, and we are planning educational experiences for parents and students to share information about sleep and the dangers of drowsy driving. In addition, the board commissioned a transportation study with school board consultants last year to provide an initial snapshot of transportation issues that will need to be addressed when considering new bell schedules. We also commissioned a traffic study to examine traffic implications of new schedules, and we have initiated a study with the Hanover Research Group to examine the experiences of school districts like ours that have changed their bell schedules to align with sleep recommendations for adolescents. For additional input on this issue, LMSD is also actively planning to, one, conduct learning conversations with parents starting this month in order to gain insight into the implications that new bell time scenarios will have on families. 2, gather groups of secondary students together starting this month as well in order to discuss the issue and to inform the types of questions we may need to ask on a student survey on this topic. 3, collect data on key metrics within the district, such as tardiness, absenteeism, nurse visits, driving accidents, before and after school schedules, homework expectations, student work obligations, childcare, and the impact that having a, quote, free period at the start of the day has on high school students. And I think 4th, I lost track, plan for additional data collection with staff members to learn more about how changing bell schedules would affect the professional and personal lives of our employees. So based on this continued analysis, it is premature to commit to the type of resolution you suggested at this time, but please be assured, however, that the board and administration remain committed to this issue, as well as working directly with you as we continue to finalize this important issue with due diligence. So I just wanted to make sure that since it was raised in a public fashion, that people were able to hear that we are deeply concerned about this issue and that we are moving forward with collecting the types of information that we feel is necessary along a whole kind of range of issues to be able to make, well-informed decisions. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Only that, as the speaker rightly pointed out, the Challenge Success Survey has, as part of it, a number of student wellness issues, as well as school start time and sleep and homework and a variety of other things. And that is very much in keeping with the board and district's commitment to following through on our strategic plan in this issue.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to the sort of routine business at this point. So we need to approve the minutes from the attached Board of School Directors meetings. That's the December 18th regular business board meeting, the January 16th special meeting of the board, the January 16th Education Committee and supplementary regular board meeting, as well as accepting the following committee meeting minutes, which is the January 3rd curriculum meeting, the January 12th policy meeting, and the January 18th facilities and purchasing meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. I will now turn it over to you, Mr. Copeland.
It's just some highlights. I've got two, both from Harridan, it happens to be. Congratulations to the Harridan robotics team on Saturday, January 20th. Their second team, 197A, finished first at the New Foundations Charter School in the zone high school division qualifier. The Tournament Champions Award qualifies them for the 2017-18 Eastern Pennsylvania State Championship being held on March 3rd at Norristown Area High School. Congratulations to them. Also, congratulations to the Harridan Science Olympiad team, which traveled to MIT for the premier preseason invitational, where we received gold medals. Anatomy and Physiology, Avery Parr, Sam Weissman. Dynamic Planet, Rob Chen and Patrick McGann. Fermi Questions, Tom Mackenzie Smith and James Powell. Forensics, Anthony Zhu and Manali Zhao. Silver medals, Ecology, Robert Chen, Patrick McGann. Herpetology, Richard Haslam, Shwini Shende. Optics, Tom Mackenzie Smith and Avery Parr. Rocks and Minerals, Richard Haslam, Sunan Zhao. And Thermodynamics, Anthony Zhu, Sam Weisman. And finally, fourth place medals and fifth place medals, Experimental Design, Rob Chen, Patrick McGann, Manali Zhao. And I'd love to see the Mousetrap Vehicle from Tom Devlin and Ben Wolf. I don't know how that ended up fifth. That should have won. Okay, next is Human Resources. The superintendent recommends that the board, school directors approves the attached Human Resources, HR 1 through HR 7. I'd like to take motions A and B in one motion. And further, the superintendent recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the attached independent consultant agreement with Mark Klein.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Oh. We are now going to have a report of the Curriculum Committee meeting from Dr. Van Lynch.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. The Curriculum Committee met on Wednesday, January 3rd at 8:30 a.m. First on our agenda was course textbook proposal for an updated IB psychology textbook for our 11th and 12th graders. The last text was purchased in 2009, and with a number of changes and updates for the curriculum for our IB program, a new textbook was necessary. The estimated cost of the books, 85 in total, is $4,000, $467.59. And the curriculum committee agreed to move this request to facilities and purchasing, which you'll hear about shortly. Our main presentation topic was around achievement and growth data for the district. Dr. Everslag presented the committee with the most recent LMSD achievement and growth data. This presentation was also shared on Tuesday, January 16th at the education meeting and is available on the Board Docs site for your convenience. Overall updates included the following. 2017-18 is the first year of the Every Student Succeeds Act. School performance profile scores will no longer be used as a public report card for schools. Pennsylvania will later receive a dashboard summarizing achievement, growth, and disaggregation by more subgroups. College and career readiness indicators will be required and included in the dashboard at all levels. Pennsylvania delayed the graduation requirement for students to attain proficiency on all three Keystone exams, algebra, literature, and biology, which will now begin with the class of 2020. The length of the PSSA is being shortened so that fewer school days are dedicated to our testing beginning in 2018. And the PSSA Keystone exams will be administered later in the school year to allow for more instruction, and this will begin in 2019. We then moved to an overview of the assessment results from the 16-17 academic year. And again, I'll just try to high level some of this as the presentation is on Board Docs and was discussed at the last education meeting. So again, the movement from the school performance profile will be replaced next year with the Future Ready PA Index, so more to come on that. All 10 schools increased from 15-16 in their scores SPP index, with the exception of Bala Cynwyd Middle School and Lower Merion High School, but still very slight variability. The committee raised some concerns around some of the issues where schools' numbers were different from the previous reporting year, and that was discussed at length as well. So let me just move to now talk a bit about the PBOS and growth analysis that was shared by Dr. Everslag with the committee. Students scored in the advanced performance category and are generally maintaining their performance categories, but not showing as much growth as students in other performance categories. Our students in the two bottom quintiles are showing far greater growth, however, than their peers in the state. Our PBOS scores in all three Keystone areas show improvement from previous years. There's significant evidence that we exceeded the standard for PA academic growth. However, there remain concerns, and the committee talked about this at length, about racial and economically disadvantaged subgroups that we and the administration recognize that issues need to be addressed. So specifically in terms of the goals to addressing those, there was discussion around and presentation from Dr. Everslag about school learning plans in response to achievement imperative goals. Learning plans would identify students who require new, personalized approaches for supporting their academic growth and success. In addition to the learning plans, building specific plans which would include problems of practice that closely examine student achievement data to create accountability and expected outcomes to support our students who are struggling. And then overall, some of the areas that the focus will be on regarding closing achievement gaps include the following: further racial literacy and cultural proficiency work, and focus on Lower Merion School District achievement gaps. And you may have heard this last week as well, focused one-to-one tutoring for identified students in each building, continuing to build on-ramps and jumpstart opportunities and support restorative practices, in-class supports, and family engagement through the Achievement Imperative Task Force, and then a variety of other suggestions and goals that the administration is working on. Our update was on what you've heard about earlier in the meeting, the Challenge Success Survey. The committee decided to move the survey forward for consideration of facilities and purchasing as well. Lots of detail there. Total cost of the program is $4,500 per school for a total of $18,000. But I believe I saw for tonight $1,000. So thank you to Dr. Paul and the team for getting the cost down slightly on behalf of the district. There was one school that was slightly under 1,000 students. So we appreciate the due diligence there. And with that, again, everything is on board docs, and you are welcome to review the related presentations. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, February 6th at 8:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. And it's also on the video as well, if people want to see it instead of read it.
For educational services, I'd like to take motions B through E with one motion. B, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves registration and tuition fee structure for the 2018 summer school programs as listed. Further, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached overnight trips. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached quote to purchase IB psychology textbooks at a cost of $4,467.59. And the administration is recommending the Board of School Directors approves the attached contract to purchase the Stanford Survey of Adolescent School Experiences for each secondary school at a cost of $17,000.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's pass.
Under Student Services, I'd like to take motions A and B in one motion. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the student services items as listed, agreement for students receiving non-district educational services SS1 through SS4, and the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached Easter Seals agreement for special instruction services during the 2018 extended school year summer program at the set hourly rates as described in the agreement.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion's passed. I know. We will now have a report of the January 18th Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting by Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you. This meeting, we met this past Thursday at 8:30 in this room, and we began reviewing and recommending for approval the list of bills. We then moved on to review and recommend for approval this evening the following district contracts. The first was with Easter Seals for hourly rates, either $92.50 or $94.50. This is a renewal contract for the Easter Seals who will provide special education and tutoring services for students with IEPs for the extended school year. The next item was the Stanford Survey for $17,000. This is a new contract to Stanford to provide surveys to both middle schools and both high schools, as outlined by Dr. Van Lynch. We discussed that the surveys will be taken at school, will be anonymous to students, and provide insights onto the students' perspectives on homework, extracurricular activities, sleep, physical health, stress, etc. The third contract was with Oxford University Press for $4,467.59. This is the contract, as mentioned by Dr. Van Lynch, to purchase new textbook for the psychology course in the IB program. As was discussed, our current textbooks for this topic are outdated and do not match the IB's current study of the subject. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a list of bus drivers who drive buses from our various outside vendors for students within the district. This is a review that is required by state law. We then reviewed and recommended for approval the following items from the purchasing report. S.J. Thomas Company for $45,994.94. This is a contract to replace the lights at Ballackinwood Middle School Gymnasium with energy-efficient LED lighting. It is anticipated that the savings in light bulb replacement, which is a manual thing to replace them when they burn out currently, and the reduced energy usage will offset this cost in several years. The next contract was also with S.J. Thomas Company for $343,316.48. This is for S.J. Thomas to be the general contractor on the Ballackinwood Middle School cafeteria renovations that are going to take place this summer. Next contract again was with S.J. Thomas Company, $37,057.37 for S.J. Thomas to be the HVAC contractor to the Bala Cynwyd cafeteria renovations. And then another contract for S.J. Thomas for $108,805.42 for them to be the plumbing contractor on the Bala Cynwyd cafeteria project. And then another contract to S.J. Thomas for $178,483.77 for that group to be the electrical contractor at the Bala Cynwyd Middle School cafeteria. I'll add this up for the cafeteria work comes to a grand total of $667,663.04. Still on the purchasing report, we then had yet another contract from S.J. Thomas for $500,359. This will be, S.J. Thomas will be the general contractor on the cafeteria upgrades at Welsh Valley this summer. S.J. Thomas again for $37,566.89 for S.J. Thomas to be the HVAC contractor at Welsh Valley cafeteria renovations. Another contract to S.J. Thomas for $100,008.62 for them to be the plumbing contractor at Welsh Valley cafeteria. And then S.J. Thomas again for $216,995.38 to be electrical contractor on the Welsh Valley cafeteria renovations again. The total for Welsh Valley came to $854,930.05. We then moved on to a contract from A Turf Inc. That's been revised to $586,617. This contract is to replace the artificial turf field at Harriton. The turf field at Harriton is approximately 10 years old and has reached the end of its useful life. There was some discussion about a logo near one of the end zones and an enhanced logo on the center of the field. The committee agreed to recommend the approval of the base bid to replace the turf field as it is out of date, or it's out of useful life, but declined the logo near the one end zone and asked for additional pricing information on enhanced logos at the center of the field. I believe the administration is going back and trying to get additional pricing. We'll bring that to the facilities and purchasing and then again to the full board if there were to be any enhancements. I want to comment, every contract that I've mentioned up there from S.J. Thomas and A-Turf was awarded through a statewide competitive bidding process. We then had two bus bids, which were done through the district's bidding process. The first will be recommended for approval for Aurora Bus Sales, $177,270. This is a contract to replace three 30-passenger gasoline-powered buses. This is part of the district's long-range plan to replace buses as they near their end of useful lives. The next contract was also with Aurora Bus Sales, $207,812. This is a contract to replace two 48-passenger wheelchair-accessible buses, again, replacing buses that are nearing their end of useful life. Again, this was a district-run bidding process, and Aurora was the lowest responsible bidder in both cases. The committee also agreed with the administration's recommendation, to reject two additional bus replacement bids as the bids were out of scope of the district's specifications. The administration is planning to rebid these contracts and bring them to the Facilities and Purchasing Committee for review in the future. We then moved on to review and recommend for approval a renewal contract with E-Plus for $31,721. This contract is to purchase maintenance services for 1 year for the virtual services the district uses, which provides upgrades and patches for things because these servers are on a yearly basis. The next contract was recommended approval with Presidio Network Solution for $10,455. This contract will purchase 3 Cisco switches. 2 will be used to replace existing switches that are nearing their end of useful life, and the third will be available for a quick replacement if either of those fails, as that is a critical piece of our IT equipment. We then reviewed and recommended for approval an amendment to an existing contract with Barry Izett and Associates for an additional amount of $34,000. This will bring the total not to exceed amount of this existing contract at $38,700. As has been previously reported, a stormwater basin at Harriton is failing in one section. This contract is to provide additional monthly inspections for Barry Izett to come out and to check on the progress of those degradations of that stormwater basin on a more regular basis. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a contract with ELA Sport, for a not to exceed amount of $8,000. ELA Sport will provide design specifications and contract administration for the replacement of the Harriton turf field this summer. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a contract with Shepherd Restoration Engineers for a not to exceed amount of $14,050. The district conducted some emergency roof and window stonework repairs at Bala Cynwyd Middle School this winter break. This contract is for design specifications and contract administration for the permanent repairs for those areas that will be proposed for completion over the summer. We then reviewed and recommended for approval an individual work order with Frank F. Tavani and Associates for a not to exceed amount of $12,000. The district is exploring new school options with 100 Wynwood Roads which is the St. Charles Seminary. This contract is for traffic analysis around that property. The committee requested that this work be staggered such that costs not be incurred if it is learned early that this property will not suit the district's need. We then reviewed and recommended for approval an individual work order for Gilbert Architects for a not to exceed amount of $51,000. This work will explore the feasibility of using the same property, St. Charles Seminary, as a possible site for a school. This work, again, was requested to be staggered out such that if adverse conditions are determined early, additional work can be stopped and avoid the unnecessary additional costs. So finally, that was the end of our contract issues. We then received updates on the cafeteria spaces at Welsh Valley and Bala Cynwyd Middle School. Initial costs have been finalized, and as discussed earlier, we're hoping to approve contracts tonight. And we did have some discussion of how the masonry repairs went at Bala Cynwyd because they were done during the winter break, and this is our first meeting since then. Our next facilities and purchasing meeting will be in this room, February 15th at 8:30. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Driscoll. And before we go on to vote on these, on many of these contracts, I just want to reiterate that I am in no way related to anybody at Gilbert Architects. I just want to make that clear. I tend to do that every time they come up, just so that that's clear. Mr. Copeland?
Under Business Office and Finance, I'm going to take items B through G in one motion unless a board member would like me to separate any particular item. Seeing that there are none, the administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the following action items. Approve the list of bills. Approve the financial report for December. It should be 2017. It says 2018 on the agenda. It's 2017. Receipt of the second quarter student activities report. Accept with pleasure pursuant to policy 702, the donation of portable soccer nets from the Penn Valley Home and School Association for the Penn Valley Elementary School fields. We thank them for their generosity. Adopt a resolution to not raise the rate of any tax for the support of the public schools for the 2015-16, 2018-19 fiscal year by more than 2.4%. The index established for the district by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and declare surplus equipment as surplus property and authorize the disposition thereof.
Okay. On behalf of the board, I would just like to thank the Penn Valley HSA for their generous donation. Are there any questions at this time? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Under Facilities and Operations, items A through I, as Mr. Driscoll noted in his report, were all reviewed at the Facilities and Purchasing meeting, so I'm going to take them all in one motion. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors award the following contracts for the Bala Cynwyd Middle School gymnasium lighting, the Bala Cynwyd Middle School and Welsh Valley Middle School cafeteria serving area modifications, replace the Harrington artificial turf surface, award bids for 3 30-passenger gasoline Type A school buses and 2 Type C 48-passenger wheelchair-accessible school buses, and reject bids for 5 72-passenger diesel rear-engine Type D school buses and 4 72-passenger CNG rear-engine Type D school buses. Approve the list of contracted transportation services for their bus drivers and bus aides. Approve the First Amendment to the Barry Isett and Associates work order in the amount of $34,000. Approve the LEA Sport proposal for replacement of synthetic turf field at Harrington High School for not to exceed fee of $8,000. Approve Shepherd Restoration Engineers proposal for masonry restoration at Bala Cynwyd Middle School for not to exceed fee of $14,050. Approve the individual work order professional services for F. Tavani Associates for traffic analysis at 100 Wynwood Road and not to exceed amount of $12,000. Approve the individual work order for professional services for Gilbert Architects, Inc. for a feasibility study at 100 Wynwood Road in a not to exceed amount of $51,000. Approve E+ quote for annual software maintenance and support for server virtualization software in the amount of $31,721, and approve Presidio Networked Solutions quote for Cisco hardware in the amount of $10,455.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, hold on one second, I'm just checking something. Vic, I'm just checking, okay, there it is. The cost of replacing the turf field, I just found it, it's on page 3 of the purchasing report, is that correct? Do I have it right? So was that,
That's the base amount. That was Mr. Driscoll mentioned. They were approving the base amount and does not reflect the enhanced logo cost in the middle.
wasn't, for some reason, I thought the number was in the 700s. Am I
No, it was-
confused by
The
it?
committee was high, I'm sorry. The committee price was higher because they had proposed more, but we had asked them to take some of the things out. So this price will be lower than what we saw on Thursday. I'd have to pull up
Right,
the
but
meetings.
just the logo was only about $25,000. It wasn't a couple $100,000.
Yeah, I think it
No.
was like 612,000 top of my head. I think it
That
was
sounds
roughly
about right.
with the logo in the middle.
Okay, so it was low 6 and not mid 7s. Okay.
Yes, I think that's about right.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So,
Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. At this time, we are going to have a report of the Policy Committee meeting from Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. I'm sorry, Dr. Gilbert. I'm so used to saying that. The Policy Committee met on January 12th in this room at 8:30 a.m. For first reading, we had policy 356, 456, 556, crowdfunding. The Solicitor's Office has recommended that we adopt these new policies which ensure that all crowdfunding campaigns conducted by district employees relating to their roles as district employees have prior written approval of the administration. Policy 134, AR 134, and policy 134A and AR 134A. District-provided technology resources. This policy and its two accompanying regulations relate to student use of technology resources provided by the district before high school. They are updated to reflect current practices and procedures as well as to address some language usage issues. AR 134A addresses students' email accounts and web cloud-based storage and applications. AR 134 and 134A will be renumbered as 134-1 and 134-2 for consistency with other policies and regulations. Policy 137, district-issued laptops, student rights and responsibilities. This policy relates to the protocols for issuing, monitoring, and handling situations relating to student laptops issued by the district. The administrative regulation includes approved forms, procedures for reporting stolen or lost laptops, and other notices. And we had time to discuss AR 206-4, which is assignment of pupils, partner schools. This AR was brought back from last month with revisions and updates in accordance with current procedure with respect to our partner school methodology. Detailed letters will go out to the affected families as the registration period for the next year progresses. And the next policy committee meeting will be held in this room at 8:30 a.m. on February 9th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. The following policies were reviewed for a first reading, as we just heard. Policy 134, district-provided technology resources, students' use, rights and responsibilities. Policy 137, district-issued laptops, students' use, rights and responsibilities. And policy 356-456-556, crowdfunding. At this time, I'd like to invite people who would like to make public comment on any issue to come and sign in with Ms. LaPere. If everybody who wants to speak could please come in and just sign in, and we'll get started. And it's the usual. Please, once you please sign in. Once you get up to the podium, please let us know your name, generally where you reside in the district, and then there's the 3-minute time limit, and then we'll address questions at the end. So please sign in. Sir, you can get started while other people are signing in, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
My name is Steve Filippone. I reside in Penn Valley. I have a comment. I came to this meeting. I don't look at Facebook, but I did get an email, so I might be part of the rumor mill. I was under the impression that we were going to talk a little bit about St. Charles Seminary, but looking at everything you guys talked about, I guess you're just in the feasibility stage, and you're investing $51,000 max bid to get to that step. One of the things that there's a lot of rumors circulating about what you guys are looking into as far as the overcrowding issue, and one of them is moving to a third middle school and then taking the elementary schools from K through 4 and pushing the 5th graders up. There's a lot of smart people in the room and a lot of people looking into this. One of my concerns is the MELC program. I'm in a house with 2 working parents. We rely heavily on the MELC program. If you take the 5th graders and push them up, does the MELC program go with them to the middle school? Because right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable with my 9-year-old being at home or getting off the bus and being at home for several hours by herself. She doesn't turn 11 until the end of the 5th grade year. I would really like child services through 6th grade if possible, but maybe I'm asking too much. I want you to really consider the MELC program when you come up with your solution. I prefer that the kindergartners get grouped by themselves and you keep 1st through 5th together and then add the 3rd middle school if you can. But that's just my thoughts on it. I don't know if you guys have considered or talked to MELC about it.
Thank you, and we'll address these at the end. Thank you very much for your comment. Next person? Thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Stephanie Tomei, and I'm in Penwan. My daughter was diagnosed with selective mutism. It's an anxiety disorder where children are, you might be familiar with it, unable to speak in certain settings, quite often school, because of anxiety. And I can empathize to some extent because I've attended a lot of these meetings before, and this is the first time I've been able to come up and speak tonight, but I wanted to speak on her behalf. I feel really grateful to live in Lower Merion School District because of the resources that she has access to. And I wanted to thank you all for your commitment to keeping the class sizes very small. That's really important, I think, to our students. But I did want just to emphasize the importance of overall school size to these children. I think when you have overcrowded cafeterias, overcrowded gyms, overcrowded events, overcrowded clubs, overcrowded fields, I think it has a detrimental impact on all of the students and their ability to learn and to engage and really to thrive, especially children with special needs. And my daughter's doing exceptionally well, thanks very much to the staff that you guys have in place. But I just want that to be something that you take into consideration because I don't think it may be as obvious on the surface as to the kind of impact that they can have for the students. So I know you have really difficult decisions ahead of you, and I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Hello, Adrian Seltzer, Lower Merion. I just wanted to bring up some food for thought since you're going away and thinking about new buildings and things like that. I was thinking that it might be interesting if you're considering a middle school at the Islamic Center, that you maybe consider a small campus at the seminary for a full-day kindergarten center. We're a first-class township, and the fact that we don't have full-day kindergarten is because of not enough room, and that would be a solution. Also, I was listening to all the contracts for S.G. Thomas, or my pen skipped, so I didn't write it down. I was wondering if you guys get a volume discount. I just thought it would be nice as far as when people come up here and give suggestions or their opinion, that it be acknowledged by the board instead of ignored. When I was surprised to learn about that there is no requirement for teachers to take continuing education courses in cultural proficiency in order to advance. And I think this is really important, especially for a school district that says that this is a priority. And the fact that was ignored at the beginning just left an uneasy feeling in me. Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? I also want to say, Lisa, come on up. I also want to just let people know that that our retreat is at Lower Merion High School. So we're not heading anywhere. It's a fabulous place to go, but.
Hi, okay, Lisa Prosnitz, Penn Valley, I didn't forget this time. So to the board and Dr. Gilbert, and on behalf of all the concerned parents, I want to thank you for your thoughtful response regarding the start time issue. It seems like the board is seriously considering later start times, particularly as you and your colleagues all stated that later school start times were necessary at the board forum, and that was the only issue that all 8 of you actually that were up there agreed on. The benefit of a resolution, as demonstrated by other successful communities, is that it helps prepare the community in moving forward. Your response suggests that the board is moving toward making the change, so why not codify it with a resolution stating such? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The issue of 5th grade childcare at the middle schools has come up in other situations where we've moved 5th grade into a middle school, and absolutely, that's a good point and something to very much consider, and so that would be part of our planning. In terms of kindergarten center. We did look at a kindergarten center. We looked at that for the St. Justin's property. One of the challenges with a kindergarten center is that then creates a 4th tier of transportation. So that just kind of adds to the complicated aspect of where we go. A kindergarten center at the seminary is a cost issue. The seminary property right now is going, one piece is going for $29 million, the other piece is going for, I think it's $15 million. As I had indicated in the budget presentation, we don't have, we've got a shortage of space, but we also don't have a never-ending source of income. And balancing our needs, our wants with our needs and what we have to do is really part of what this process is going forward. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I would just say to Ms. Seltzer that I wrote down your suggestion and was going to look into it, but it's, negotiations is not something that we generally talk about, but I did take note of what you had said and thought that was interesting. So, hold on a second. I have now, would you mind please reading the Sunshine Act?
In accordance with Act 93 of 1998 Sunshine Law, the Board of School Directors met in executive information sessions on the following dates: January 16th to discuss issues of real estate and negotiations, and January 22nd, 2018 to discuss real estate.
Thank you very much. And I'm now just going to read some upcoming meeting dates. And, I'd like to highlight that on February 5th, there's going to be a special meeting of the board, which is another facilities update. So particularly for those of you who brought issues to our attention around the facilities issues, to please come if you can. That's at 7 p.m. here. On Monday, February 12th, there will be an regular education committee and supplementary regular board meeting. That'll be at 8 p.m. Tuesday, February 20th, so not on Monday, but Tuesday, February 20th, there will be a regular business board meeting at 8 p.m. And then committee meetings, we have the January 24th, what date, what's today?
22nd.
Oh, we're still, okay, I'm doing well here. January 24th Communications Committee meeting has been canceled at this time, and we're in the process of searching for a staff person around this, so that's what we're working on. On Tuesday, February 6th will be the Curriculum Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m., Friday, February 9th, Policy Committee at 8:30 a.m., Thursday, February 15th, Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m., and then Wednesday, February 28th, the Communications Committee meeting at 7 p.m. So thank you for everyone who stuck with us all this time, and we will now adjourn.